We are inconsistent creatures. One minute, we might be overflowing with energetic feelings of vitality, meaning, and purpose. The next, we might suddenly feel sapped by a nagging sense that actually nothing we do really signifies anything grand or important. Ultimately, nothing we do matters at all. Albert Camus, born in 1913, was a French philosopher and novelist whose works examined the alienation inherent in modern life, and who is best known for his philosophical concept of the absurd. In his 1942 essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, he sets out to explore the concept of absurdity, writing, "There is but one truly serious philosophical problem, and that is suicide. Judging whether life is or is not worth living amounts to answering the fundamental question of philosophy. Is existence worth it?" To begin his investigation into this question, Camus brilliantly evokes the mundanity of everyday existence: rising, streetcar, 4 hours in the office or the factory meal, streetcar, 4 hours of work, meal, sleep, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday according to the same rhythm. This path is easily followed most of the time. But one day, the why arises, and everything begins in that weariness tinged with amazement. Camus compares our condition to that of Sisyphus, the unfortunate figure from Greek mythology who, after angering the gods, is doomed to push a boulder up a mountain, only to have it roll back down once he reaches the summit. Each time, Sisyphus must descend and begin the process anew, endlessly repeating this futile task. The workman of today, Camus continues, works every day in his life at the same tasks, and this fate is no less absurd than Sisyphus's. For Camus, it's not just the similarities between Sisyphus and our repetitive day-to-day schedules that make our existences absurd. It goes far beyond that. Camus thinks Sisyphus's situation perfectly encapsulates the entirety of human intellectual and philosophical endeavor. Despite our yearning for an ultimate meaning behind existence, in Camus' mind, such meaning, if it exists at all, lies beyond our comprehension. He writes, "I don't know whether this world has a meaning that transcends it, but I know that I do not know that meaning and that it is impossible for me just now to know it. What can a meaning outside my condition mean to me? I can understand only in human terms. What I touch, what resists me, that is what I understand. And these two certainties, my appetite for the absolute and for unity and the impossibility of reducing this world to a rational and reasonable principle, I also know that I cannot reconcile them." We occupy what Camus calls an absurd space between our impulse to ask deep questions and our inability to answer them. Man stands face to face with the irrational. He feels within him his longing for happiness and for reason. The absurd is born of this confrontation between the human need and the unreasonable silence of the world. As we navigate life, we might try adopting Aristotle's framework for guidance, or perhaps we'll delve into Buddhism for insight. Alternatively, we could draw inspiration from Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch and forge our own unique path. Thus, the image of Sisyphus represents our efforts to create meaning through various frameworks and projects, only to see them collapse repeatedly, prompting us to start all over again. Camus urges us to recognize that, in light of the ultimate unknowability of the universe's meaning, its unreasonable silence in response to our questions, every choice we make and every value system we adopt is fundamentally arbitrary. If we choose to fully embrace a particular doctrine and deceive ourselves into believing our convictions are absolute truths, we may find comfort, but in doing so, we risk a kind of metaphysical suicide. Unable to bear the discomfort of uncertainty, we surrender to the allure of dogma. In our quest for an authentic existence, we ironically settle for inauthenticity. Camus thinks we can live more authentic lives not by escaping or denying life's absurdity, but by reflecting on how we might live in spite of that absurdity. In his 1938 review of Sartre's Nausea, Camus writes, "The realization that life is absurd cannot be an end, but only a beginning. This is a truth nearly all great minds have taken as their starting point. It is not this discovery that is interesting, but the consequences and rules of action drawn from it." Camus' rules of action embody a form of metaphysical rebellion. the decision to resist surrendering to absurdity through delusion or despair, whether that means rejecting metaphysical or actual suicide. Instead, it involves living fully with and in spite of our absurd reality. In the Myth of Sisyphus, Camus describes such rebellion as the constant confrontation between man and his own obscurity. It challenges the world anew every second. Just as danger provided man the unique opportunity of seizing awareness, so metaphysical revolt extends awareness to the whole of experience. By refusing to accept comforting delusions, we open ourselves fully to life, to living here and now, lucid and liberated. There is no sun without shadow, Camus writes, and it is essential to know the night. To emphasize his message, Camus invites us to view Sisyphus not as a figure to be pitied, but as a hero worthy of admiration. Despite everything, Sisyphus persists, demonstrating that we can confront the certainty of a crushing fate without succumbing to resignation. When the boulder rolls back down, underscoring the futility of his task, Sisyphus descends after it. In this moment, Camus believes, Sisyphus fully confronts his absurd fate and achieves a profound awareness of his tragic condition. As he trudges down the mountainside, he acknowledges the depth of his suffering. Yet within that awareness lies his silent joy. His fate is his own, and the rock is his burden to bear. Camus reframes Sisyphus's predicament not as a dismal punishment, but as a chance for him to shape his own experience. He doesn't view his boulder with resignation. Instead, he chooses to follow it down, thereby taking control of his narrative, defying the gods, and rebelling against the absurdity of his punishment. We too have this opportunity. With every crisis of meaning and every project we complete, we find ourselves like Sisyphus on that downward slope, contemplating our own absurd fate. Will we wallow in self-pity? Or will we, like Sisyphus, choose to rebel against the fate that life has dealt us? Camus writes, "There is no fate that cannot be surmounted by scorn." By engaging with life fully, with vitality and intensity, and by rebelling against our absurd fate, we can defy nihilism and define what it truly means to live. Ultimately, while Camus acknowledges that we are condemned to face absurdity due to the human condition, he argues that this doesn't have to lead to despair. In fact, it's only by confronting this absurdity and heroically persevering that we can live authentically. We may not always find deep meaning or fulfillment in our endeavors. We might not always believe in the value systems we embrace, and we may never completely escape that persistent sense of ultimate meaninglessness. However, as long as we continue to push forward and keep our heads held high, we can discover joy, a defiant, authentic happiness, in the simple act of striving. For, as Camus concludes the Myth of Sisyphus, the rock is still rolling. I leave Sisyphus at the foot of the mountain. One always finds one's burden again. But Sisyphus teaches the higher fidelity that negates the gods and raises rocks. He too concludes that all is well. This universe henceforth without a master seems to him neither sterile nor futile. Each atom of that stone, each mineral flake of that night-filled mountain, in itself forms a world. The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy.